We are a team. As storytellers and dreamers,
there is always magic to discover.
Once upon a time,
a Las Vegas showgirl
and a comedian magician
figured out that even with different perspectives,
our adventures and experiences together
are really just
one big caper.
Hey there, welcome back to One Big Caper. My name's Athena, this is my partner Phelyx, and this is a podcast about all of our capers on stage and off.
Yes, very often we get prompts from people who listen to us or watch this thing, and today is one such occasion. But this is completely unscripted, so we don't expect what one another is going to do. But I brought something here because we launched well over a year ago now.
Yes.
But when we launched One Big Caper, which, to be perfectly frank, we do for the catharsis of it as much as we do to give you information about us. It's been cathartic, and it's one of those ways that we continue conversations that we always have, but in public, right?
Okay.
You don't look worried. You don't have to be worried.
Okay.
So again, it's totally unscripted, and because we are not necessarily aiming to make this a huge project or whatever, there is not a whole lot of emphasis on marketing this podcast, which may or may not change, but we appreciate your help in passing on the word. In the meantime, when we launched, I released a little graphic. I created a little drawing for One Big Caper to kind of count down the days until we launched the broadcast and published it. So one of my friends, Aaron, printed this, which looks like our graphic. So this is our little rocket, and I'm going to put us inside there as an eventuality. But there's our One Big Caper rocket.
Thanks, Aaron. That's off. No.
Careful.
It's awesome.
It's awesome. It's really cool. So this is 3D printed and very well done and lovely. So
Aaron is a listener?
On occasion, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So there's our One Big Caper rocket.
It's our first One Big Caper gift.
That's right.
Oh my gosh. That's so fun. I like getting gifts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Why'd you have to interrupt the whole introduction to this thing?
Because I was going to forget. I knew we were going to get into a lively conversation, and I was going to.
Yeah, it's a doozy today. That's pretty cool. Okay. Well, here, you said it over there. As Phelyx said, we talk about sometimes prompted things and sometimes things that we come up with that we talk about on our own. So sometimes I wish I could just pull out the microphone and start recording when we have our conversations, because they're so awesome.
They have to be a lot of bleeps.
Anyway, this particular subject was requested by Taka.
A dancer friend of ours.
Yeah.
In fact, a world's champion belly dancer.
Yes. And I thought this was interesting because I feel like she has made her career and brought it to where it should be. Like, as far as being respected, only doing gigs that are gonna pay appropriately for the world champion belly dancer and all of that stuff. So I was kind of surprised to see that, but there it was, the request for this topic to be discussed.
Right. And Taka, I hope you are listening, of course, because this is an answer to your question.
You have to tag her.
And it's a massive subject, as you well know. I will tag you in this.
Granted, I just will say she asked for this when we first put the list out.
Yeah, so you've forgotten that you asked this question.
What the?
No.
September 2021, this question was asked.
Okay. Well, I think it's reasonable for us to finally try to tackle it. It is not a completely unsolvable mystery, but I think one of the biggest questions when you go into business for yourself as an entertainer and a complicated one.
Yes. I think it's in any, you go into any business, period.
Sure. What do I
But
charge?
yeah, what do I charge? Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll say one thing is that I've learned a lot from this guy here. When we first met, of course, we met in the burlesque house, and I was doing burlesque. And I thought getting paid $75 a night was great until a few years later. Because I was thinking about what am I going to say about this topic when I was getting ready, and I thought, you know what? When I was in the show, I was paid $100 a night, about $103 a night or something like that.
Which isn't very much,
It's
really.
not very much. You're
Yeah.
doing 1,000 stairs a night. You have to keep your body in beautiful shape. So whether that meant tanning, manicures, pedicures, massages, taking class, or working out at the gym, you had to do all of these things in addition to doing the physical thing that was the show. 1,000 stairs a night. Like that's enough to lift your butt, and but you still have to keep your dancing, technique up.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So I didn't do very good at that. But anyway, besides the point, I really wasn't getting paid much per show, about $50 a show. But that was as a covered dancer. When I was topless, it was like, what? It was $100 more. So divide that by 6. 6 days a week that we worked. So anyway, it really was still like not very much. So I thought, oh, $75 a show, that's great. However,
in the world of burlesque, there are a lot of expenses that go beyond keeping yourself in shape.
In a production show, because in the production show, they supplied the costumes and the shoes and the tights. All I had to bring was my body and my brain. Because, yeah. In burlesque, you have to make your own costumes, choreograph your own acts, pick your music, edit your music, do all of these things to prepare to create a show, or even just one act that's 3 minutes, and you're only on stage for 3 to 5 minutes, but you're expected to produce your own mini show week after week or month after month, and you don't get to get booked every night. People don't go to burlesque shows every night. Like, it's like a weekend thing. So it'll be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you'll get booked. So that's 3 days a week, $75 a show. That's $225 a week. It's a side hustle if you want. But as much as I spent on my costumes, because I will not use plastic rhinestones, I will not use knockoff rhinestones. I only used Swarovski. And if I couldn't make the costume, I couldn't afford it, I didn't do the act.
Mm-hmm.
Because it had to be, I blamed Don Arden for that, because it had to be the best. The costumes had to be the best, right?
Yes.
So I spent thousands of dollars on my costumes. I don't know how. Honestly.
We had this discussion earlier, and I'll just bring it back up. It's a brief element, but the costumes are part of the product in your case.
Oh, right.
You could dance without those things. You could dance wearing plastic rhinestones, but so part of your product is the costume. And I have the same issue in my work.
Yeah.
It's the costume and props are specifically me, Professor Phelyx.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the expense that goes into being able to do my work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that should be calculated, of course, in what you intend to charge or what kind of rate you intend to develop.
Yeah.
You can get so technical as to determine your cost per use.
Yeah. I did that. For one of my acts.
So one of your costumes, how many times are you going to wear it, or how many times can you imagine that this costume is going to survive how many performances, and then break it down?
I did that. I did it for Seaside. I'll put a link here. I broke down how much profit I made from that act, because it was my most requested act. It got requested for like a year straight, pretty much. Mm-hmm. And now I got paid, $75 per show to do it. Mm-hmm. And I just went, I didn't like keep track at the time, but I went back and I did the math. After the fact, I checked all the emails with the set lists and I was like, oh yeah, I did it here, 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 so many times. And I actually came out, I think, plus $900. Yeah.
Okay.
In the black. Yeah. Right. So that was surprising to me, but I did not spend $3,000 on that costume. I spent $80 or something like that. I'll have to look back, but it was under $100 for even with the rhinestones. It wasn't like encrusted with rhinestones. I bought that silly umbrella. I had to replace it 3 times because it broke.
So this is doing business.
Yes, cost of doing business. So like you have to calculate in maintenance. So this is what I was trying to do with Showgirls Life, was to help people like, don't go creating another act just because you have this great idea if you can't afford it. Because that's where my like practical, like, I'm not getting into debt for this situation. Right. Yeah. So my Gazellas act, I think, ended up costing $3,000 with the feather fans that were $1,000, all of the rhinestones, all of the beading and all of the fabric, and then later the crown. And that's not counting the hours. Right. That's just counting supplies and materials. It's not even, yeah. I commissioned you to make a wire sculpture for that, but I never paid you for that.
That's okay.
Okay.
It's a beautiful sculpture. We still have it.
Yeah.
And this brings to mind, I have so many things to say on the subject. One of the things that we wanted to highlight in this discussion is the sweater that Athena is wearing right now. Yeah. And okay, so let's just talk, thinking about nothing else about that sweater, which you hand knit.
Yes.
Okay. What were your expenses with regard to materials alone?
Just the yarn, because it's alpaca silk, was $90 each.
$90.
Yeah, so 3 hanks of alpaca silk was $30 each. $90.
Okay.
Just for this. And this doesn't have sleeves. There's not very much of a back. It's pretty much backless. There's like all of my back showing. And just the yarn, because I will not use cheap plastic yarn for something I spend, I don't know. This one probably took me 40 hours to knit.
Okay, so that was good.
30,
you're getting ahead.
Oh, sorry.
You're getting ahead. But yes, hours are important. So
yeah.
Right now, just in materials, we're talking $90.
$90.
And it would be impossible to estimate the amount of time that you have devoted to the craft of knitting to understand how you got to this level. Like,
oh, yeah.
Right? So,
yeah, that's impossible
your background in knitting and all of the years of practice that went into being able to follow these ridiculous patterns that
this was a free pattern too.
Right, but the patterns are difficult to interpret. It's like a sheet music, for example.
Yeah, you have to know the symbols. You have to know, like, this one uses German short rows. Brownie points to anyone who knows what that means. But basically, it makes this curved. I don't know if you can see it. It's a curved bottom. It's makes curves or corners if you want.
So that's part of
that's advanced knitting.
That's one of those things, all the years that you've put into practicing to be able to knit that.
Yeah.
That we would try to include in developing an hourly rate.
Right.
Now, we'll get back into hourly, but reasonably, you are skill-wise, ahead of the average knitter.
Yes.
Right. So
definitely
that translates to if an average knitter could earn hourly at minimum wage, then you would have to go above that for sure. Right.
Right. But who's like I said, okay, so this on a more conservative estimate, if I spent 25 hours on this sweater and they were paid minimum wage, is it 15 now? Or is that in certain places?
I don't think that's happened yet. So
no, so it's
can.
Okay, so when we say $10, so it's even, right?
Right.
$10 an hour, 25 hours. That's $250
plus 90 in expenses.
Plus 90 in expenses for the sweater, alpaca silk. No one's going to pay $350 for a sweater. That's not even a full sweater.
$350 for something that's barely larger than an eye patch.
Well, you shrunk it.
I'm
so.
I'm sorry. So,
My bad.
Now we're just talking about, a knitted top, but it's not dissimilar from selling your wares as an entertainer.
Yeah.
In Taka's case, she studied for years to be able to dance the way she does.
Yeah.
And that the proof of that is in her laurels, including world champion.
Yeah. Yep.
So what is that worth? How do you put a dollar amount on that?
Right.
Very, very difficult.
For sure.
And I relate to all of this.
Yeah.
I would say that right now I am still not the most expensive mentalist magician in this market.
Really?
Yeah. But my rates are up there. My rates are definitely up there, and that is based on not just the years of experience, but the fact that my product is unique.
Uh-huh.
And I don't charge an hourly.
Right.
I have a bunch of rules that are in my rider, like I don't travel on show days and that kind of thing. But I do have expenses for every show, whether it's dry cleaning or I go through decks of cards like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Every show I open a brand new one. It's part of the show, right? So those go. I ruin a lot of flatware. You
used over 3,000 decks of cards?
Oh, more than that.
Oh.
Yeah, more than that.
You're killing trees.
No, I give them away. People like them as souvenirs.
I know. Same thing with your forks.
Also a souvenir, but also an expense, right? And the types of forks they're real forks. They are restaurant forks, but the kind that I like are becoming more and more scarce. So I'm a little nervous.
Might have to retire that one.
No, can't do it.
Oh, he's not going to retire.
My hit song.
It's your hit song?
Yeah.
No, you can't. You can't come up with a new one.
I'm trying.
Anyway, sorry, that's off the
subject. We're pricing. Point. So,
what Phelyx is trying to say is, I think, and I've heard him have conversations with people about his rate. People trying to book him, and they are flabbergasted that that's his air quotes hourly rate. He's not charging by the hour. He's charging for all of his experience moving up to where he is now, plus all of his expenses that he has to cover. And if you like, one of the things that I was looking into is like, how many shows would you have to do a month to make it a full-time gig? And then you price accordingly. Like, that's one of the things that's come up between us is like, okay, well, how many shows would I have to do? You can't do a burlesque show Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So that's 4 days out of the week you can't work. So how much? So like taking into account, like if you wanted to do it full time, how much would you have to charge? That's one of the things that came up when I was going into coaching, or thinking about going into coaching rather, is how many clients would I have to have, and how much time between each client? I can't be like a doctor and just see clients all day, you know. I mean, they make a lot more money, but so people have said to him, that's how much you charge an hour? Because they think that he's only going to be there for an hour, but they're not taking into account. And this is when I woke up to the idea of like $75 really isn't that much, because it takes me an hour to get ready and an hour to drive to the venue, usually because I live out in the suburbs. So that's 2 hours out of my day that are not paid. Then I have to get to the show an hour before it starts, because that's customary. The call time is usually an hour before the show. And then I wait until my act. I do my 3 minutes, and then I have to wait till the end of the show to do the curtain call. And then it's a 45-minute hour drive home. So that's 6 to 7 hours out of my day, and I'm only making $75. It's not even like $12 an hour or something like that. Like granted, now in my employee job, I don't get paid for the 3-hour commute every day.
Nope, it's part of the agreement. You move closer.
Which is why it has to be worth it. My hourly has to be a certain point, and the tips need to be worth it. So at this point, my hourly rate on average is about $55 an hour. So.
Here's for an entertainer, particularly a solo act, I would say that hourly is a fine thing to think about when you are still in practice mode. When those gigs are helping you create what is going to be the final product. Once you get to that final product, we're no longer talking about an hourly rate. You brought up how much a doctor makes. Ask a doctor how much they get paid per hour, and they will laugh at you because they don't charge per hour.
No, they don't.
Right?
Yeah.
Attorneys at least charge per 15
like,
minutes.
I think it's $350 an hour or something.
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
I mean that on average. But
on average.
What I'm saying is that they will bill you in 15-minute increments.
Yes.
So it's not an hourly thing either.
Right.
We got to get outside of this hourly rate thing.
But it's so many people work and trade their time for money. That's why it's still there.
It's a labor thing, but that's I think hopefully going to be a relic.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Because like entertainment, any entertainer, it's an art. Okay. Speaking of entertainers, you brought this up. I don't know if we ever talked about it on the podcast, but how football is, and it's not considered a sport. It's an entertainment something. You said
football
how
on
many
television,
millions are those guys making?
It qualifies as entertainment, and that's why they're getting that kind of money.
They're getting millions of dollars. Well, the whatever, the important players, when they're only playing 12 minutes a game, like 12 minutes of game time, of play time during the game.
Yes, but they have also committed, not unlike joining the military, to a lifestyle, and it's been their life. It's been their life since they were young children.
Well, why are they getting paid that and ballerinas are not?
Because of the money that goes into the advertising and the entertainment aspect of the game. The subject came up to essentially question and determine whether or not games could be fixed for the sake of the entertainment, like the WWE or whatever. Yeah, can it be scripted? Can they script the Super Bowl?
Well,
and they can't.
I heard some people say that it was this last Super Bowl.
That's always if somebody's team doesn't win, then they're going to think it was fixed. It's
well, like, she doesn't give
a certain president,
but that's what she said. They changed the script or something. Yeah, she literally said that, and I was like, "Ooh, okay."
They can't do it.
Okay, no magnetic football thing.
No magnetic football.
I mean, cameras are flying around the field. Why couldn't the ball fly around the field?
Yeah.
Anyway.
I do think it might be chipped so that cameras can follow it, but I'm not certain about that. Anyway,
yeah. So these are things to think about.
And your experience as an entertainer. So one of the considerations that I have taken into mind when developing whatever my current rate is, which has gone up very recently, is not just awards I've won, but I have to think about the market I'm in, what other entertainers in this market are charging. That is no longer part of the process in me determining, because I've moved past that. I consider myself a national entertainer.
Okay.
So I'm not pigeonholing myself into what I can charge in certain markets, and that used to be a big consideration. Like if I was traveling to Nebraska, I would charge differently than if I was traveling to Manhattan.
Oh.
And I no longer think about that. I have just one rate.
Okay.
It simplifies things so much.
Yeah, I bet.
And I'll give you a juicy bit, a little secret, and think about this. When you're asked what your rate is, you know what's coming. I don't know. When you're asked what your rate is, say you get the email and they say, okay, what would it cost to have you perform in this event? Or I'm assuming that this is directed mostly at entertainers. When you develop your figure, say you want $1,000. My recommendation is if you say it's $1,000, most often you're going to get a counter offer.
Yes.
Would you do it for 800? Well, no, I can't. I'll do it for 9. So you just lost $100.
Mm-hmm.
Say instead of $1,000, you want $978.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
If you say my rate is $978, it reads as it is scientifically calculated and non-negotiable. It will save you so much money because you will get a yes or a no, and that's it. They're not going to come back and say, "Would you do it for 500 or
Right.
even 800 or whatever?"
Right.
So you're much closer to that $1,000 figure, and you've backed off just what $22, right? That's better than losing.
Or could you add 3% and
that's another. Adam Savage from Mythbusters says that he would always bid 10% over, so that if they balked at all about the figure, he could give them a secret 10% discount.
I love this.
That's not a bad technique.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, but he is Adam Savage.
Yeah.
I mean, you just pay what he asks, really.
Now, but he was talking about even his time before ILM.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, I have a juicy bit.
Okay.
Yeah, it has to do with my time in burlesque. Yeah, and so when you said you had a juicy bit, I don't know if that was a juicy bit.
That's a pro tip. How's that?
Okay, pro tip.
Okay.
Sure. This is a juicy bit. So I did burlesque from like 2014 to 2017. It was only like 3 years. Wow. 3.5 years. And, I went through some things. We're going to do a whole series on hell gigs, and, crap shows, because it's important to get out there.
People want to hear those stories.
Yeah. People want to hear those stories. But after 3.5 years of all of that, and then, having some good experiences too, there was a few experiences that I was so upset about that I just had to do something about it. And so that's what I did. The number one thing, and I think I talked about this, why I left burlesque, and it was because they wouldn't let me compete in the festival.
Mm-hmm.
And
which brought it up.
Right. So that was like the fire. And I was just like, oh no, this is not going to happen anymore. Because Phelyx brought it up earlier, is you're bringing your entire experience. You're not just bringing today. You're bringing however many years you've been performing. And I realized I am bringing all of those years, my 25 plus years experience on the stage from when I was 3 years old to the burlesque stage every time I performed. Not only that, I was a principal dancer in the biggest show in Las Vegas for I was there for 5 years, and I was, in that principal role for about 2 years. So I was bringing that to this small little house that was 120 people, like audience, when I was performing for 1,300 people back then. Not getting paid well, very much, but at least it was a salary and benefits. I did get benefits and all that stuff too. I wasn't getting much from this weekly show. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to see what happens, kind of like that 10%. So after I performed in the Valentine's show, it was a special theme show for Valentine's, and I don't remember how much they were charging, like $100 a ticket or something. And I got paid to do one number that they requested, and it was that Seaside number. One number, and I got paid $350. And I said, oh, okay, well, they can pay. They just proved to me that they can pay this. So I decided, okay, well, I'm going to send this email. And so I did. I said, this is my new rate for special shows. It'll be higher. And I don't remember how I closed it. But what I got back was, thank you very much. Good luck. And I was like, and I'm done. So that's how I left burlesque. Just basically setting my rate. Like, you paid me this for one number, and this is my rate going forward.
Yeah. It's a predatory and unfair business model for a lot of reasons. However,
what?
We met in the same burlesque house.
Explain what you mean by
burlesque that. Is heavily reliant, especially more as it evolves, and that's a difficult word to apply to burlesque, because you and I agree on this point, but it isn't what it once was.
No.
But you are getting people to perform for peanuts.
Yeah.
and there are expenses involved and that kind of thing. We're supposed to talk about how much people should charge for themselves. And here's my point. I'm going to get off of that. We'll get back on that some other episode. You okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I just want to insert this real quick before
Okay.
you go there.
Okay.
I was on Venmo the other day doing that donation that we talked about.
Mhm.
And I saw someone had just paid the local burlesque festival application fee.
Mhm.
So they basically are paying to perform
Mhm.
because they're not going to get paid. They get a little goodie bag of crap that people donated to the performers, and they're usually crappy pasties and advertisements. Yeah, not really a lot of, yeah. There's the only reason to do those festivals is for exposure.
I know we've talked or touched on one of your soapbox issues, and I totally get it. Yeah, burlesque is rough, but because I know Taka, who prompted this episode, works in a burlesque house. Taka also does many other gigs outside of there. So here's where I'm going with this. As a burlesque dancer, you're not going to get corporate bookings, right? It's very unlikely that you're going to get any or very many
I know a handful that does
gigs.
I know a handful that do.
So for those of us who are variety performers and rely not on burlesque income, but on an income outside of burlesque, burlesque is very attractive, not for the money, but for the opportunity to practice new stuff, test new material, learn things. So I credit my years in burlesque, which totaled 13 years that I did. I didn't make a lot of money, but the education I could not buy. I would not be able to pay to get that kind of an education. So I'm very grateful for those years in burlesque, and for that matter, the social circle it afforded me and that kind of thing. And I'm not as in touch with those folks as I once was, but I got you out of burlesque.
Oh, woohoo! He got me.
I got you. But I really got an education that money can't buy.
I hear you. I hear what you're saying. But
it doesn't work the same for the dancers.
No, and not all burlesque performers are dancers.
Burlesque is also one of those art forms that is done for each other, and an audience buys a ticket to watch them perform for each other. That's another episode.
It's another episode.
Yeah.
We might not even do that, but it's something we can talk about. And they'll probably say, all of our burlesque friends would probably hate us. But anyway, no, like I hear what you're saying. But I was told by that producer at the festival that I can't compete because it wouldn't be a competition. After the other producer had told me, well, you raised your rate by winning awards. So, of course, I'm going to sign up to compete so I can win Miss whoever the F in whichever town. Just so I can have that title is not former principal dancer of Jubilee not enough.
Aren't really earning much of a living either.
No, they're not. But I guarantee that the one who won Queen of Burlesque came back with a higher rate, and it was paid. Guaranteed.
Possibly, but that's
it wasn't $350.
One gig a year.
What?
Like earning that kind of money. So I know one of the people in burlesque who won a highly coveted award, and all of a sudden didn't get booked anymore because people thought she would just be too expensive.
Yes, there's that. True.
I have experienced pricing myself out of a market, if you will.
Well, that's what I did.
That's a very, very scary thing to do. When you raise your rates, it's very scary to know that you're probably going to be saying goodbye to clients. In my business, I have return clients who see me once a year, if not more frequently, or even every other year, but they're still return clients. And I know that one of these days I'm going to lose a few because I'm pricing myself out of whatever their budget will cover.
Yeah, but you're making space. According to the law of attraction, you're opening the vacuum for more to flow in.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's been my experience.
Well,
so
that's why I did that email.
Right.
Like I was basically setting my rate and saying, you can't get me for this cheap anymore. And so they say goodbye.
Right.
So I haven't done a show. I did one show after that.
In that venue?
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
It was, and my guarantee was met by a different troupe. That was.
I remember.
You remember?
Yep.
Yeah. You know,
Yep.
it just. But I was okay. Like, it's not my career anymore to be a dancer. It's not. I don't condition my body anymore. Like, it's more about the fashion show for me, or being able to make something to express myself. That's what it was about. And I can do that without spending thousands of dollars on feathers and sparkles.
Right.
I can spend hundreds of dollars on yarn.
I do have variables in my rate structure. So there are certain situations that I would charge less than my corporate rate. So corporate rate is the highest rate that I have. Theater rate. There's comedy club rate. There's parlor show rate. Parlor show is one of my favorite experiences, but it's when I go to someone's home or a small place and the audience is maybe a dozen to 30 people, and we have fun together, and I get to really interact with everybody in the event. So there's a different rate for that, and it's lower than my corporate rate. Theater rate is different because it's usually a run of shows, and it's kind of a package deal. But that also comes with all the rehearsals, and it's a commitment.
Right.
So that's different. A comedy club rate is, I get a guarantee of X amount of dollars. It still has a comma in it, but it's the lowest end. But that's the guarantee. So say they sell tickets over a certain goal, and they recover their base expense for
investment,
then I get a percentage of the door
over that. Right.
All right. So it's a little complicated, but all of this is directed at everybody, but specifically Taka. And Taka, you are a world champion. That should be reflected in your rates. You're worth more than anybody can afford, and I love you. But charge appropriately. Don't undercharge.
Yeah, because same thing happens in graphic design. The people that work for Fiverr or that you can hire in Fiverr are not doing real graphic designers in this country a favor for charging $25 for a logo, because logo, branding, voice, all of that is at least a $3,000 investment.
I think that's worth addressing. It's worth addressing. Undercharging can be part of this episode, and we'll wrap it up with a little discussion of undercharging, but you don't miseducate a market by undercharging.
It's miseducation. Totally.
And it hurts other entertainers in this case. If you undercharge it, it hurts them. It makes it more difficult for them to explain why their rates are the way they are. It's why people balk at my rate once in a while.
He gets emails saying, well, I don't know if you've ever heard how much other people are charging, or like the last guy said 300, and it's like, who is the last guy? So I can go slap him upside the head.
Yes, I do lecture, particularly magicians, because I have extra qualifications with those entertainers, but I do lecture them very much about undercharging.
Yeah. I have blogs about it on my website about undercharging. And I think there's like 4 or 5 of them. And then there's a map of what certain states pay for burlesque acts. And of course, the coasts were more, almost double what was in the center of the country,
right?
Which is funny to me. And, I've heard people, when I was a rideshare driver, I heard people in my back seat say, like, balking at a $25 event ticket. And I'm like, go back to wherever the boonies that you came from. Because, and I think that particular girl I remember was from LA. And I'm like, you're paying at least $50 to $75 for an event.
Oh, a small event. Yeah.
A small event. And most of the events here in Denver are like that. So
we're getting up there. We're getting
finally
big city status.
Big city status. No, Denver will never be, because we won't pay more than $25 to go see a show.
Well, now half of the population is from California, so that's changing.
Oh, okay, great.
California and Texas.
Go back to Texas.
Oh,
I can't deal with the littering and treating the land as if it's
getting pretty rough. It's not what I
that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
all over the place today. No, but I think that's good. Let's just stop undercharging. Even as a person in a regular job, know your worth. That is something that I have been struggling with for at least 10 years, is knowing my worth. And I'm starting to ask for it. And yes, I'm not getting some of those clients, but they're coming to me asking for the moon, and I'm not going to be delivering that.
The bottom line for me is that when people are hiring me, they're not hiring a magician, they're hiring a Professor Phelyx, and there's only one.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we should put that on your website.
Okay.
Yes. Speaking of, you have a new one.
I have a new website. Thank you to Athena. Thank you, my love.
It's so beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for listening to us go on and on about money.
Thank you. As always, you can reach us at hello@onebigcaper.com. We do want to hear from you.
Thank you.
We can't keep doing this without you. Give us just a little bit of your time by subscribing, sharing, rating, or talking about One Big Caper with someone else. We really appreciate your help.
We want to hear your stories. Visit onebigcaper.com to get to know us even more.
All of the audio and visual digital media associated with One Big Caper, in whole or in part, is the property of Gazellus Productions, LLC.